Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tyred Boys podcast, coming to you live from Catwalk. I'm your host, Justin.
And I'm Aaron. Welcome back, everyone. We've got a big episode today with the 2024 Qatar Grand Prix weekend at the LaSalle circuit. We had F1 Academy, F2, F1, of course. So a lot to get into, but Justin, why are we on the catwalk?
We are on the catwalk because as much as I'm going to do my best to talk about Formula 1 with any kind of informed takes, my brain is in Shanghai right now thinking of smokes, Molotovs, AK-47s, and how we're going to push those mid doors. So, my friend, I will give you as much attention as I can, but man, I am looking forward to this weekend, that's for sure.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure I'll hear about it a little later in the episode, but to get us started with this week's quick hitters, I'll breeze through them so we can get into the juicy stuff today that I think will hopefully hold the interest a bit more. But looking at the new Cadillac GM team that is expected to come into Formula 1, there's reports from Mario Andretti as well that Colton Herta is a priority to keep in one of those seats for the team. So it's pretty exciting. Obviously, plenty of things could change over the next year and a half or so before the 2026 season, but I think that's an exciting prospect. A little later than we maybe anticipated, but I think it'll be very interesting to have the opportunity to see a driver go from IndyCar to Formula 1 that was not already a Formula 1 driver, like Alonso coming back from IndyCar. So that's a pretty interesting prospect down the line. The Italian Grand Prix at Monza has been extended until 2031, similar to Monaco. So exciting. Gotta love the Temple of Speed. It's a good track, a fun one to go to. So definitely looking forward to that continuing. Valtteri.
Just a quick note there on Monza. To my understanding, from the team's perspective, I've heard this a decent amount, like in the rounds leading up to Monza. A lot of teams begin to get a feel for where they're at, like pace-wise compared to the rest of the field, like at that time in the season, because it is the Temple of Speed. It's one of the fastest tracks on the calendar, so you really get a sense of like where you're at in the like true pace pecking order, because there are no like weird sectors or like confounding parts of the track that like cause maybe like awry results. So Monza tends to be, one of the faster tracks on the calendar, and allows for teams to kind of lock in where they think they're going to fall kind of regularly over the course of the rest of the season. So I'm happy to see that it's staying, like for that reason, because it's a what's the word, like a thermometer circuit, like a benchmark circuit. There you go. I really like that. And B, just it being one of the faster circuits, there tends to be some pretty solid races that happen at Monza. One of the tracks that I enjoy. So I'm definitely happy to hear that.
Nice. I didn't think of it in that way. In particular, I always just feel like we have excitement. But that's part of it. I think it is that point in time where it's early in the season, you don't quite know where everything's shaking out necessarily. So I think that and the high pace of the circuit and all really is an exciting thing to watch. So I'm a big fan of Monza. Glad that it's staying on the calendar. For the next quick hitter, though, Valtteri Bottas, who is leaving after this year, is going to be reuniting with some former F1 drivers like Seb Vettel and Mick Schumacher. He'll be racing in the 2025 Race of Champions, which is a yearly event. I'm not 100% sure what all is involved in it, but so an international motorsport event featuring drivers from Formula 1, World Rally Championship, IndyCar, NASCAR, So it goes to the Holland Speedway, and they're in kind of a stock car racing event, which is looks pretty cool. So definitely nice for him to be able to start looking at the future after F1, and for us to still get some Valtteri out there.
Yeah, that's a really exciting one. Get a chance to see some kind of legacy names, but also like some drivers that are still looking to compete actively. In the realm of Valtteri, one that we may look forward to seeing at the Goodwood Festival of Speed. Maybe driving one of the one of those type vehicles in the future. But yeah, 2025 Race of Champions. That sounds quite exciting. Yeah, and a way to see some of your favorite drivers racing again.
Yeah, and from what I just saw, which I didn't realize, is this happens in Pennsylvania at the Mahoning Valley Speedway. So, Justin, you and I might have to make a trip, go meet Valtteri, Seb, and Mick. But that would be pretty interesting.
That'd be really awkward for Valtteri because I wouldn't be able to stop trying to touch his hair.
I mean, it's just party in the back. It's there. It wants to have fun. But moving along to some news for the upcoming Grand Prix. But one of Toyota's World Endurance Championship drivers, the champion of the Toyota World Endurance Championship, Ryo Hirakawa, is going to drive Oscar Piastri's McLaren during first practice session. So that'll be cool to see someone who's not typically in a single seat car driving there in FP1. And cool to see this kind of crossover a little bit with Toyota. Obviously, Haas is now sponsored by Toyota as well, but to see that kind of mix a little bit, and of course the Endurance Championship coming in, that's interesting crossover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is pretty cool. I'm curious if that's like part of the teams. They have the quota of young driver sessions that they have to get in.
I think that counts for one of them. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. And kind of double dipping in that regard, able to I'm thinking of like a gradient. I'm thinking of like different gases like diffusing into each other. There's something about like these meshing of companies, like a new partnership as a way to open doors to each other.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's like exactly right, exactly what's happening, but it is a little bit of like mixing of two worlds, right?
Yeah, and I think being a champion in another series also gives a lot of like commendation to his opinion, his information. Maybe he's just a really smart driver in terms of the feel for the car and setup, and so maybe they'll get input from a very different perspective from what they're getting internally with the team that maybe will help with just feel for the car and different things like that. So maybe like valuable, they're like, if we have to have someone else in the car to get this testing practice session and all, let's get someone in there who maybe we can gain some value from as well. Little symbiotic choice there.
Yeah, there you go. That's a really good point.
But yeah, and so then the final quick hitter for this week, which I think deserves a little extra conversation, but Tim Mayer, who is the son of one of McLaren's co-founders, who has been in motorsport for a very long time, was the lead steward or the head steward in Formula 1, was fired by the FIA president, Mohammed Ben Sulayem. It's just interesting because there's like rumors that have come out about why, and he pissed off Ben Sulayem, so he fired him, but there hasn't been an official statement. The Grand Prix Drivers Association put out a statement basically saying, hey, we feel like we should be told why this decision was made and everything. This affects us as drivers. And the FIA president came out and basically said it's none of their business. I respect the drivers. They need to focus on racing. I'm here to handle the FIA. I don't have to tell anyone why I make any decision. And to some extent, I'm like, okay, like maybe they don't need to know all the nitty gritty, or maybe that information doesn't have to be public to the media to, hey, have the drivers sign some sort of NDA or something. Like, I don't know. They should, in my opinion, I feel like they should have some sort of say in this to some extent. It's like, especially if it wasn't something like the guy flew off the handle and like punched someone and they're like, yo, that guy's gotta go. Like, that doesn't seem like this kind of situation. It seems like there was some sort of internal conflict. He's being let go. But when it comes to like someone who is officiating a lot of these events and everything throughout the year as a steward, as a head steward, I feel like the drivers are affected by that and should at least be in the know, whether they're helping to make that decision or whatnot. That's a whole different story. But yeah, I felt like the response from Ben Slam was a little bit just kind of like from up on his tower, like just you just have to deal with whatever I decide what happens here. You have no say.
I can see that where, you know, he may believe like it's a purely clerical decision. It's just going to be about like paper pushing effectively. He probably believes it like won't even affect the drivers really. Like, what's it matter if it's like this guy Tim in or, you know, Frank in? To the drivers it shouldn't really matter. Like, the rule book's going to be the same. You know, I could understand this type of thinking, and, you know, yeah. Not that he's offering that as his reasoning, but like these are just, you know, lines of thinking that I could at least understand. But yeah, I think I'm kind of with you in the sense that it feels like the drivers should at least have some relationship with the person that is going to be deciding their fate in some regards, you know, yeah. Like, I mean, you want a little bit of goodwill in that scenario where both sides of that very fine line that the stewards have to run, where it's like, yeah, we're trying to follow a rule book, but also like understanding that there's a whole lot of gray area inside of racing and respecting drivers' opinions and all of this stuff. So, yeah, I wish, or no, that's not like the right way to say it. I would like more information, but if he's gonna be just like stamp of approval, like veto type shit about it, whatever, dog. You do you.
Yeah, it's just, I think, and it speaks to, I've heard a lot of conversations, and we'll talk about this a little more as we get into the episode, but with the inconsistency of stewarding and everything in the day of our Lord, or the year of our Lord 2024, like, I feel like as a professional racing series, having professional stewards who are trained, they're educated on the proper like rule book and all of these different things, that are hired and paid. Like, you don't necessarily even have to have the same stewards at every race, like traveling with the circus. Like, there are different sets of officials that officiate different games across all other sports, and they are rated on how they do as an official by the teams, like after every game. And at the end of the year, the people who get to officiate in the Super Bowl and in Like, the playoff games are the cream of the crop, who the teams and people have voted to have done the best job officiating across the year. Like, that is a normal system, and that can be implemented into Formula One with professional stewards. So just this like weird, like, oh, I don't like this guy, maybe he's gone, or like, I'm just, even if he does have the concept of like, you don't need to know, it doesn't really affect you, everyone should handle this similarly across the board, like, then it's like, then why can't we know why this guy was fired? It's like, I just think that overall the stewarding should be a bit more just like out from under the rug, or just easy to see what decisions are being made and why and who and what, because otherwise we just get these weird inconsistencies, or like it's just a bit too foggy for me.
Sure. I'll see your professional stewards and raise you volunteer weekenders. How does that sound? I think that's what we really need, is just an ever-changing group of ne'er-do-wells that
with their
have
biases and their
yeah, we're like, one weekend we just get a bunch of people from, I don't know, maybe just like the Red Wolf or the Red Bull fan club. We can have like a couple stewards from there, or for a race we could get like Paula Abdul, Reba McEntire, and like Tom Hardy to do like a guest set, right? Where they're the guest stewards. I think these would all be better than your washed up professional stewards idea.
They would be way more interesting than me trying to keep it pretty boring and say, hey, like, study your rule books, everyone, before you take the officiant test so that you can be a good steward. Yours sounds like a little more chaotic, a little more fun, a little happy-go-lucky there. You
remember when Tom Holland was the flag waver?
Yes.
Now picture, he wasn't just the flag waver, he was the head steward for that weekend. Just imagine.
I'll raise you this. The flag waver at every race, bonus steward for the week.
That's sick.
That's sick. Just the a potpourri bonus steward for the week that gets to help out with the decision making, and they're like, whoa there. Let's reel this in, guys. You're talking a lot of sense over here. But have you heard about 10-second stop and go penalties?
Yeah, what you're saying, that was like Tom Holland's idea? You think that was Spider-Man's like his throw-in?
No, I not this time, but you never know. You gotta keep it wild and crazy for everyone. But before we get into all that, to move along before the Grand Prix segment, we have a little of do you work here / should you work here. So first one being, there was a report that VCarb is no longer looking to get Franco Colapinto for a seat. They have passed on him. There's conversations that Alpine may be interested in him, but it seems that Red Bull is sticking within their pool of drivers that they have. And then the should you work here part of this is, before the race weekend, I'm seeing some stats about Checo. There's a lot of things up in the air. There's a lot of conversation that's been had. But one little quick stat was that Red Bull, before the race weekend, had scored 109 points over the last 6 Grand Prix weekends. Max had 100 of those points, and Checo had 9 of them. Then we have the fact that Max has out-qualified Checo in qualifying and sprint qualifying. In the last 50 sessions, he has out-qualified Checo 49 times. And, these are just things that, like, we've talked about, being close to your teammate, taking some, we've talked about head-to-heads, and that's just a brutal one. And then after Las Vegas, Checo's average gap to Max at the end of all of the races combined was almost 35 seconds of a gap between him and Max at, like, average per race. And so leading into this weekend, there was a lot of conversation about Checo. Like, should he be here? Who should go into that seat? What are the options? Franco Colapinto, Liam Lawson, Yuki Tsunoda, all these names being thrown around. And that, I was like, I read all of that, and I was like, well, I feel like at this point, the decision is probably, like, kind of being made behind closed doors. But, like, I hope Checo has some good weekends to close it out. Just like, hey, do your best, have a good one.
When were you thinking this? Before Vegas?
No, before this week. I was like seeing these stats, and I was like, you know what, Checo, if you are going out, like, I really hope you go out on a high. Like, at least like maybe sneak a podium in one of the last couple races here. And I was like, I was starting to feel a little bit bad. I'm just seeing everyone trashing him, and I'm like, I think he should probably go too, but also, like, I feel for the guy. He's a person.
Right.
So I was really hoping for it, and as your reaction said, things did not go superbly for him this weekend. But yeah, definitely, I think the conversation needed to be had at this point in the season, and looking at some of these stats and head-to-heads. Like, if you're not going to be getting enough points for our team to win the championship while your teammate is winning his championship, like, there's already got to be conversations. But those were just some very glaring stats from the weekend, or from before the weekend.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any words that could describe better the stark difference that those stats so clearly describe. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I mean, like, I'm jumping like way far ahead, but did he just straight up like quit the race? Did he like spin out and then quit? 'Cause like his car wasn't
it's gonna sound even worse than like when I say it, but I'm fairly certain from the telemetry and the different things that I read and saw, I think he hit the throttle a little too hard. There might have been some sort of issue with the throttle, but he gunned it and spun out. Like, he hit it a little too hard and spun on cold tires, and then stalled.
Okay.
Because he's like, I lost drive, and I'm pretty sure it was just like he spun out on cold tires. Maybe there was some sort of like slight issue with things, but then just like was like, oh, car won't start, and I guess I'm out.
No way, dog. Because I was like,
that's the gist of what I got from it.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, that does sound about right. I did not want to like assume that, but based on what the commentators were talking about, it sounded as though like, oh, there was no issue, like he just spun, but then the next thing you see is he's like walking away from the car. I'm like, bro, did he just rage quit? Like, what the hell?
Yeah, because he came over the radio saying, I lost drive. And it's like, it sounded like the revs went up like slightly before that. Like, he was coming out of the whatever turn he was going through and getting on the gas a little. And it's under safety car, I'm pretty sure at this point, too.
Okay.
So, very cold tires, but yeah, just spun out and then, like, just couldn't get it going. So,
Damn. That's really unfortunate.
yeah. So, very interesting moment. One of Checo's moments, but before we get into the rest of the Grand Prix weekend and all, we just want to remind you, if you are watching, listening, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you're hearing us, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. We're really looking to grow our community here and just be able to interact with our listeners and viewers and all, and just hear your opinions on F1. We like putting this out, and so we appreciate you being here and want to make sure that you get those reminders to be here after every race week.
Let your friends and family know, after every single race weekend, you've got the best Formula 1 content coming your way. That's the Tyred Boys podcast. Thanks for listening.
Yep. So back to the episode. We'll start off with the F1 Academy series this week. So wrapping up the F1 Academy season, championship, and everything. We had a very just strong weekend from Dorian Penn. She drove phenomenally throughout the weekend. She had a nice season as well. I think she finished P2 in the drivers' championship. Yeah, so P2, but led both laps in qualifying that she had. So for qualifying 1 and qualifying 2, even her second best time for qualifying 2 beat out the best time from any of the other drivers across the grid. So she had the 2 top times overall, and goes ahead to take pole for both of those races. The one, unfortunately, that did not happen, but she just had a phenomenal weekend here in Losail.
Yeah, it's crazy. Pooling's main contender throughout the course of their season, I think has a really strong weekend here. Unfortunately, like you said, that they weren't able to complete the second race because she likely would have had a similar performance. The win for her, very strong. The Abby Pooling points that she's able to get there wins her the championship, which is quite exciting. I'm curious how she kind of leverages this, parlays this into another drive. I'm curious, where we may see her next. I think that's very exciting. But yeah, I think as far as F1 Academy is concerned, a decent weekend. I would have loved to see the second race, like based on how competitive, at least like the top two or three drivers were. But yeah, overall, just solid weekend.
Yeah, and I think it's, we still have the final weekend, 3 races that weekend in Abu Dhabi, but just a very, good first season, or I guess second season of F1 Academy. Second season, yeah. Which I've enjoyed having the broadcast of it and everything to be able to go back and watch, getting just all of this together as a solid series, I think has been very, very exciting to watch. And so I'm looking forward to this continuing. And like you said, seeing where these drivers go. But we do still have one more weekend for the F1 Academy coming up next week.
Yeah, I think the big difference between the first season and the second season was the broadcasting, and I have to say, just knowing that there's the videos on demand on F1, and you can also watch the broadcast live as well. Obviously, it just makes staying tuned into these drivers so much easier. And I have to admit, there was a period of time, kind of over the break and therein, where I was like, oh shit, has there been an F1 Academy race? And I went, I looked, I was like, oh okay, no, I didn't miss the end of the season. It's a couple weeks out. So yeah. For someone that was tuned into the how would you say it, the early stages. Yeah, I thought it was really exciting, and to have like a couple of main characters to easily root for, pulling pin. Quite a solid second year, I would say, and like you said, still one race weekend to go. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed the coverage.
Yeah, I completely am with you. I think it was a good series. I like to see the F1 involvement with sponsorship of drivers and having them kind of in their academies and everything, having them on the grid and around for different races. It's definitely an exciting prospect to have that support for that series going forward. So hopefully we're in for a lot of good years, and then seeing where these drivers end up down the line in racing series as well. So, but moving over into the F2 portion of the weekend, one of the big notes was that we had a driver. So Dino Beganovic, who had driven in Formula 3 throughout the season, finished 6th in the championship, was promoted onto the Dams team. This was his first racing weekend of the year after coming up from F3, and I believe that was to replace Franco Colapinto's drive there for the Dams team. I'm fairly certain. So seeing him come in and take that drive coming from F3, it was pretty exciting to see. Especially he had a really nice weekend, looked really quick in that Dams car, which has been pretty fast all year. But yeah, definitely an exciting moment to see him get that opportunity.
Yeah, that's quite exciting. Now, the Formula 2 races, I wasn't the most tuned into this weekend, so you'll have to kind of give me the short of it. I heard Behrman had a pretty good weekend. I heard like Hadjar had a pretty good weekend. So kind of give me the tail of the tape here.
Yeah, so basically, Behrman and Hadjar did both have good weekends. Hadjar brought the drivers' championship into a half a point difference going into this final race from one of the races that was cut short early in the season, getting half points. So very tight fight with Gabriel Bortoleto. But Behrman qualified in 10th and Hadjar in 9th. So for the sprint race, they started P1 and P2 there at the top. Through the sprint race, Behrman looked really solid. He took the hard tires from the beginning, and a lot of drivers were on the mediums. So of course those hard tires, very tough to get fired up early. But he was able to hold on to the lead for a decent amount of time to start. And then once those hard tires fired up and the mediums started falling off, he was able to get back into P1. He had dropped back into, I think, P3 at one point, climbed his way up through. Hadjar finished P4 ahead of Bortoleto in P5. So a couple point swing there. And then going into the feature race, it was unfortunately just a little bit of team error that cost Bortoleto some of these points and everything that Hadjar ended up getting. He ends up being told, okay, pit this lap. And as he's coming around the last turn, they're coming back on the radio like, no, stay out. Because there was an incident, and they're like, there's going to be a safety car, stay out in P1 so that safety car picks you up, and then you get the free pit stop. So, unfortunately, he ends up cutting across the pit lane line very, very late, 5-second penalty that he's carrying with him for the rest of the race, and ends up dropping back from his pit stop into like P5, P6 range, but then is able to kind of climb his way back up through the rest of the race, gets up back into P1, and unfortunately, his 5-second penalty dropped him to P3. Hadjar was 4.7 seconds behind him at the flag. So we end up getting another group of points going over towards Isaac Hadjar to make up the difference here going into the last weekend of the season. So it was a 4-point swing in Hadjar's favor that brought it to a very tight standings of 188.5 for Bortoleto to 188 for Hadjar in P2 at the moment.
That's crazy. So it is just effectively a whoever finishes first between the two wins.
Yep, just beat the other guy and be in the points.
That's pretty sick. That's that's wildly exciting. Man, yeah, for Bortoleto to get done by his teammate like that, or teammates, his pit wall effectively. I mean, like, what are you supposed to do other than like try and listen to their call and then like both ways, right? Like, he tries to get in, tries to get out. So yeah, that's a really difficult position, and it's not Bortoleto's fault. He's just listening to the radio call.
Just bad luck with the timing and everything, the team not being aware of kind of where he was on the track. So instead of losing the significant amount of time that he would lose by pitting then, it just ends up being a 5-second penalty. So it's kind of the right call to stay out and not come into the pits and swerve over. But yeah, just unlucky with the timing of everything. And so he still has his destiny in his own hands at this point to be able to come out and perform. But we'll have to have a really solid weekend coming in. Of course, it doesn't really matter that much other than for Pride, because he's got his drive for next year with the Kick Sauber team. So this is just kind of the whipped cream on top of the dessert if he can win the championship here.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, like, obviously these guys are in this because they want to win. They want to be first and everything. But also the goal of driving through these series coming up is to get them to Formula 1. He's got there. So I still feel like, obviously, there's a lot to fight for, pride and all of that. But, I mean, and for your team, they've supported you throughout the year and everything. So there's reasons, but he's good. Even if he doesn't.
Right. So it's just like a little bit less pressure where like you won't feel like you need the win to get into F1.
Or what if of like, I didn't win, but maybe if I had done that little bit more.
Right.
Yeah.
It feels like you get to race a little bit freed up, and just the pressure of that weekend will be there, not, everything else that we're alluding to. So yeah, like you said, fate's still within his hands, half a point above Hadjar. You said that's exciting. That's where you want it to be.
It'll be a good final weekend of the season. There's still plenty to fight for over in the Formula 1 drivers and constructors standings as well. So looking over to F1, we've got our winners and losers for the week. So, Justin, do you want to lead us off with your winners of the week?
Yeah, sure. My first winner here is the Stewards. It seems like they had to fill a quota. They had to hand out so many seconds worth of penalties. They had to hit so many drivers.
It's almost the end of the season. You
Exactly.
You gotta get them in.
They got to get those tickets written. We got to get the township the money. So, I mean, the Stewards, if driver emotion towards them is how they are paid, they're rolling in it. They are rich, my friend. So, for those reasons, the Stewards are my first winner.
Just pure emotion, not any specified emotions, right?
No, you can be happy with them. You can be mad at them. I can't imagine why any of the drivers would be.
Yeah, I mean, and so for that reason, one of my losers for this week was the FIA.
That's funny.
Yeah, it was a weird weekend, and so just like looking at it across the weekend, we have a number of peculiar decisions. One of which being the one-place grid penalty that was given to Max Verstappen after qualifying for driving too slowly around on his slow lap. When everyone else was on their slow lap, he was impeding George Russell's slow lap. Very dangerous, very unsafe. I can't believe him. Kick him out of the series, strip him of his titles. Just, I can't believe, how could he do something like this? Going slow on a slow lap and in traffic, trying not to ruin someone else setting up for their hot lap. How dare he?
Yeah, and that's what I didn't understand. Like, I was like, oh, wait, okay, so, like, George was on, like, a hot lap, and Max was, like, cool down. Like, okay, like, fair. Yeah, and then you find out, like, no, they're both on cooldown laps. So, what happened?
Yeah, so, that I'll, like, definitely we'll talk a little bit more about with, talking about George and his part with it. But then, of course, we have, the FIA's decision to leave broken pieces of cars just out on the track in the racing line of the only DRS zone of the circuit. So just leave it out there for a few laps. Oh, someone hit it? We didn't expect that. What? Wait, I thought it was like enough out of the way of the only passing line on the circuit. Oh man, that's a shame. Oh no, and 2 punctures now too. Oh, we must we should have probably called that a little bit sooner there, guys.
And it was after Valtteri, like, blew it up.
Obliterated it, trying to pass someone.
That's a really good word, because, yeah, that thing exploded.
Yep, and so 2 drivers driving full laps, because this is right as you're passing the pit lane on the main straight. 2 cars driving a full lap on 3 tires because of punctures. You have Carlos Sainz and Lewis Hamilton just limping around the circuit. Mm-hmm. Lewis already sounded like he didn't want to be there. And then after that, it's like, come on. But the most baffling, I think, of all the decisions of the weekend is Lando Norris's penalization, the 10-second stop-and-go penalty. And so at first I was like, oh wow, that like seems like a lot. That seems a bit excessive of a penalty for them to be chucking at Lando. And then my second thought was like, okay, like where's the precedent for this? Which I did find out, and so this is where it gets a little squirrely, but the FIA, when they've had other incidents of drivers who are driving through double waved yellows, that is the penalty. It's a 10-second stop and go penalty.
Right.
However, they also threw out the double yellow flags for this mirror being on track and everything in Sector 1. Lando blows through it, and then they take away the double yellow flags and just say green flag racing, and they didn't move the mirror. So nothing had changed between their letting everyone race. So Lando's penalty is unfair in the sense that he shouldn't have gotten it because they threw the double yellows and then were like, nah, we take it back. Actually, it's fine. We didn't do anything. Everything's exactly the same. But because we just threw these flags out and you didn't slow down, you didn't follow the race director's like rules and the race director's instructions, so here's your penalty. So the penalty is technically the correct one for what happened. It just shouldn't have happened. Like, if they throw the double yellows, Lando blows through it, sure, give him a penalty. But if you threw the double yellows, then you need to bring out the VSC or have the cars follow the safety car through the pit lane like you end up doing to clean up all the chunks of this mirror after 2 people punctured their tires on it. Like, if you're gonna, like, hey, if they threw the double yellows, the cautions, then they brought out the safety car, Lando didn't slow down through it, and they say, Lando, you get a penalty now, 10 seconds, stop and go. Okay, fair is fair. They didn't do that. And the other part is, they waited like 20 laps to give him this penalty, and are like, oh yeah, so like, now that we finally made this decision on your penalty, with 10 laps to go, you're dropping to last place because there was just a safety car. Good luck. Like, it wasn't 20 laps later, but it was a significant enough amount of time that it's like, you made this decision that late where he has no real ability to make up for it. He's only lucky that he got dropped to P15 because 5 dudes were already out of the race. Otherwise, he doesn't make it back into the points. He's not passing 10 cars with that much time to go if he has to drop to P20. Like, it's just all across the board with that decision, absolutely off the rails. Like, that was just a weaving story just to get to all the parts that they did wrong of that one decision.
And it's a wild position to be in for Lando as well. Like, especially the race that he had run up till then. They were just like, not that it should matter. If you break the rule, you know, don't do the crime if you can't do the time. And all of that. But it is this feeling of like, frustration for the driver, because like even he's coming on the radio saying like, but why? There are times when drivers like understand what they did wrong and they're just like, yeah, sorry, like my bad, we'll like take it on the chin. So from those angles, yeah, just like way frustrating. Here's another really frustrating angle is these drivers, they all should have to wear a hall monitor sash and be given a whistle at all times. Like, they are so ready to, like, point the finger at each other and be like, oh, check him, he did this, he did that. Yeah. So, like, some of that is not great.
I agree. And even with, like...
From both sides.
Yeah, like, with Max, I get it. Like, if this is the game everyone's playing, he's, like, going down the straight. He's like, I lifted because I saw this double yellow.
Right.
And when we get to the end of the straight, Lando was way closer. Like, Lando was... And I remember this during the race. I was, like, kind of keeping tabs, like, is Lando going to catch him? He's got the lead. And it's, like, 2.2 second gap or something like that. And then all of a sudden I look up, like, within one lap, and it's, like, 1.3. And I'm like, whoa! I'm like, what happened there? I'm like, did Max have, like, an issue or something? And, yeah, it was significant enough that Max was just like, hey, seems sketchy, check him out. But I agree. It gets to be a lot, and especially when they're broadcasting those things frequently, like, that's a lot of the commentary we get. They have the full radios between teams. I think it could be more interesting to hear some of the other conversations going on between people instead of just like, oh, he did this, he did that. Like, yeah. I'm
if
with
that's
you.
the if those are the margins that these individuals, like from top down and bottom up, like it feels like it is bred into these organizations and these employees and individuals that are all pushing really hard to make these millions of dollars that are on the line for this series. Like, believe me, I get it, but it is not the type of behavior that you would look at in a cafeteria and be like, I want to sit next to that guy.
Oh yeah.
So it's this weird thing where you're making us listen to our favorite drivers be like snooty, like I said, snooty fifth grade hall monitors. And
Yeah.
it sucks. I really dislike that aspect of it. I believe that Lando, if he's breaking the rules, punish that motherfucker. If Max is breaking the rules, punish that motherfucker.
Yeah.
But is there a world where we could just let it come from the FIA? Let them use their millions of cameras to like catch people out, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I mean, it comes back around. Like,
Often it will, yeah.
I mean, if you're gonna have a professional racing series, like they're to give an apt comparison in my mind,
Okay.
Major League Baseball has had a huge issue over the past years, especially since they have improved their technology and everything around the league. When you're watching a baseball game on TV, you can see the strike zone right there on the screen. They show you on replays a virtual reality where did the ball cross above the plate and give you the 360 angle so you can see like this is where the ball came across. Was this umpire's call a good call or a bad call? Because it's usually on the close ones that they're making these decisions. There are umpires that are so bad that they are universally hated by fans, by players, by coaches. These guys just are bad at their job. But the umpires union for Major League Baseball is really, really strong and will not, like, they will not let one of their people get fired. It's like
Okay.
it's like a bad teacher in school who has tenure. Like, you can't get rid of these people.
Okay.
And so in that situation, you're getting this just irateness from the fan base, watching these people just continue to make bad decisions week after week after week and game after game, being bad at their job, and there being no changes made. They have the ability with the replay system, like you can have a robot telling you if a pitch was a ball or strike. Like, we have the technology. It's not impossible to do. Yet they don't make these improvements that would benefit the sport in terms of making it fair and everything. Does it take a little bit away from maybe the classic nature of the game of just going out there and everything? Absolutely. But I would rather have things officiated correctly. In Formula 1, if these people are making mistakes week in and week out, even if it's not the same people, if you're smelling shit everywhere you go, you probably should check your shoe. Like, if there's this many mistakes week in and week out with all different people making them, the problem is coming from the organization that is putting these people in that position and having them be the deciding factors. Either you're not training people properly, you're not vetting people properly, or maybe you don't have enough people who can pay attention to all the different little things and everything that are going on around the circuit. But, like, it's an organizational issue at that point. It's not, like, I can't even blame Joe Schmo who like twice a year gets a call because he lives in Buffalo, and they're like, hey, can you get to a flight to Las Vegas, and hey, can you drive up to the Canadian Grand Prix and steward for us this week? Like, that guy gets no practice, he gets no training. He's just like, they're like, you've done it before, here, read the rule book a bit and like you're good to go. We're kind of getting past that when it comes to sports, and I for one am here for our AI overlords. So something needs to change.
Okay, so are you saying that would you agree it makes sense that drivers and teams feel like they have to track other teams so vehemently because the stewardship, like race to race, can be so wonky and unofficial that like no wonder teams are pointing at each other because it's like kind of a free-for-all sometimes? Is that what you're saying?
I think that's kind of or more so why it has gotten to where it's gotten, where teams are doing this and saying these things and like calling everything out, because enough things have been missed or incorrectly officiated for long enough that they're like, we gotta point these things out for these people.
Okay.
And so maybe if there was stronger officiating and things like that, there's still gonna be the like two cars have a collision and they're like, it was him. There's always gonna be that. Like,
right.
It happens in every sport. The who, me? I didn't hold that guy in the NFL, or I got the ball first when I slide tackled that dude in European football. Like, I mean, there's always going to be that, but this little like nitpicky stuff, like that should be able to be officiated a bit better, and I think that that is kind of part of why it's devolved into this. Like,
that's a really interesting point. I think well said as well. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of loop it back to kind of where our conversation was. We were just talking about, the race weekend and just some of the things going wrong. These like officiating calls that just get really weird, and now teams feel like they have to be their own race stewards. Even like drivers feeling like they have to be their own race stewards because like it's lawless out here. Like, what? He gets to just blow through like a double waved yellow? Dog, right? And so now they feel like, I'm pointing fingers if it's not going to go right. So fair enough. I mean, I made a joke out of it. Your take is like way more reasonable, saying like this is getting ridiculous at a certain point. So,
but I mean, if you can make a joke about it, then it's like, what are we doing here? Like, this is supposed to be the pinnacle of motorsport, and we're joking about the officiating because it's that absurd. Like, that's craziness. But yeah, so the FIA definitely on my losers list. I don't know if you'll have to flip them around on your notes, but I'll get to my two winners first. I think that it's a little bit more some like uplifting, fun stuff. But first off, Zhou Guan Yu, the Kick Sauber team, clap it up for you guys. I'm proud of you. You guys have come so far. I have had you on my losers list enough times that I could just not leave you off my winners list when you got your first points of the season. It took till the second to last race, but I am glad that the engineers in particular can maybe go and be like, we worked hard all season long, and we finally got our points. At least we could do it once. I'm sure it was pretty depressing throughout the year. So, yeah, congratulations to Zhou and the Kick Sauber team. I was hoping Valtteri would get there too, and they'd get double points. That would have been mega on the weekend, but it was not to be so. And my second winner I had was Pierre Gasly. Just a great drive from him, picking up where he was left off by his car in Las Vegas and everything. Just kind of continuing that strong trend here at the end of the season. So big props to Pierre with, I think it was a P5 finish. So great drive from him. Those are my two winners here on the week.
Couple of deserving ones, I would say. Yeah, really exciting for Zhou to grab some points up for Kick Sauber here. A little late, obviously. I'm not even sure if, like, as an engineer, you're like, going out and having beers and like cheersing them up. I'm not even sure if that's the feeling. It's probably just like thank God we like can do it. We're not, whatever. So I imagine a little bit of bittersweetness going on there in the Kick Sauber camp. And yeah, a good shout for Pierre Gasly as well. It seems like, and this was like the note that I had for Alpine, it seems like Gasly is a driver, and maybe like Alpine as a team is a driver that his consistency might actually be way better than we notice on average. But you take a look at like one of these really wonky Sundays where like everything's going wrong for a lot of different teams. We're seeing offs, we're seeing like multiple safety car restarts, where like things are like way off book at this point, right? And there's Pierre Gasly just up near the top, and he's just like, yeah, I'll just take your points. So there has to be something that he's doing, like preparation-wise, or he has like locked in with his engineer or his like side of the garage that not a lot of other drivers are able to do. Like, he is in a below average car getting more out of these like off scenario Sundays than anybody that I can think of other than like an Albon, right? He has more X factor than other drivers in a similar position to him. Like, you look at the end of a weird Sunday and it's always Gasly that's up in the points. So yeah, I think that's a great shout, and he's clearly doing something right with his prep.
Yeah, even other drivers, like you said, that you could compare him to, a Nico Hülkenberg. Hülkenberg's had some great qualifying performances that he's put himself up there, and he's gotten some solid points finishes, but he always seems to be drifting back a little bit throughout the race. Pierre really feels like a lot of times, once he puts it up there pretty high, unless he just like gets unlucky, he's staying pretty high and not really dropping too far back. And fighting people off along the way to hold and maintain that position. So yeah, big props to him. Alpine, I'm sure he's getting a little bit of extra support from Alpine. The support seems to have dropped off a little for Ocon, so I think maybe he's had a little bit of extra boost from being the one that is staying on at Alpine for next year. But yeah, great weekend for him again, and nice haul of points for Alpine in the constructors fight.
Agreed. Yeah, big kick in the teeth for Ocon. I mean, that's just gotta hurt. Getting like fully dropped from the team like before the race weekend. You're informed like you're not even gonna get to race the last race of the season with the team that you just put in all year with. Bro, I am so tight in that scenario. Honestly, I think that's a little like fucked up and a little disingenuous from the Alpine squad.
Yeah.
There may be something going on that I don't know, but I mean, just from like a very outside looking in perspective, I feel really bad for Ocon.
Well, and yeah, we'll come back around to that. I think going through some because I just have a little more with that as well. But who are your winners for the week? Or were they the same?
No, definitely not the same.
Okay.
Weirdly enough, it seems like we're always copying each other's homework sometimes. But aside from the stewards joke, my other winner was Ferrari. I think they did well enough during this race that where when McLaren took their beats, took their lumps. Ferrari puts themselves in a position where they actually get to play again, which I think is really exciting for Ferrari. There would have been a point during that race where they're just saying like, "All right, pack it up, boys. Like P2 it is, no worries." But then the FIA gets on the radio and says, "Hey, Ferrari, watch this, we're giving you a chance." And then they throw that line down. So maybe if not by their own volition, Ferrari is a winner on this race weekend because they get a chance to play again. And I think that's going to feel huge for them. We hear Fred Vasseur saying on the weekend, he's like, we are going to fight until the last lap of that race at this point. And it goes to show that like nobody is counting themselves out. Nobody, thinks the chickens are hatched before the hen house, and the rain's coming later. These kind of things. So I think for Ferrari, that's really good. But yeah, that's kind of my winners and losers for the weekend.
Yeah, I'm with you. Ferrari, it's like the opportunities when a safety car comes out and people just get lucky with the timing and everything with pit stops and whatnot. Like Ferrari put themselves in the best position they could this weekend. Lando gets penalized, whether fairly, unfairly, however you look at it, but they were there to scoop up the opportunity. Charles drove a really great race to finish in P2 and be ahead of Oscar. He drove really well, clean, and just the luck broke their way this week, keeping them in that contention. It's still a 21-point gap, so still will be tough to overcome, but like Fred said, not without kicking and screaming across that finish line will they go down quite yet. So looking forward to seeing how that shakes out, even if the championship is a little affected by some of the decisions from the FIA. But my other loser that I didn't really get into because we've talked about it a little bit, but we can get into it again. Checo, my second loser on the weekend, and just to kind of carry this into our conversation about the week, but in qualifies P16 for the sprint race, having a poor race, just gets onto some new tires to basically, he said that he was essentially doing he does the pit lane start, gets past leaving the pit lane by Colapinto, just to get a long run test basically, and because he qualified so poorly that there was no shot at getting points. It's like, that's how you start the weekend. Then we have the incident during the main race where he loses drive or spins out and stalls, whatever you want to call it. Just a brutal weekend. No points for him. Just a post-weekend stat now that we've got. But Zhou Guanyu, with his P8 finish here, snags 4 points. He now has scored twice as many points as Sergio Perez has in the last 4 race weekends. So Checo has 2 points in the last 4 weekends. I mean, obviously we're cherry picking. It's just a like funky stat, but like that shouldn't happen. Like you're in a Red Bull.
Of course.
I just unfortunately I just don't know what has happened to Checo, and of course now Christian Horner's saying Checo should come to his own conclusions about what's going to happen for next season. This is the biggest points gap that a champion has had to their teammate since Jos Verstappen and Michael Schumacher in 1994, where Jos raced, I think, in 6 out of 16 races in the season or something like that. Like, there's never been a championship winner who's had this huge of a gap to their teammate, really, especially across the number of races and everything that we have now. It seems like the writing is on the wall. There's conversations and rumors about Liam Lawson now coming into that seat, Isaac Hadjar potentially getting that driving V-carb next to Yuki. There's a lot of shifting and decision making that Helmut Marko says it's going to come after Abu Dhabi. Big shock that they're not going to announce it right before the final race of the season. No, I mean, like, it's just bad. And I think Checo, unfortunately, his poor performance just has lasted long enough that this might be the end of him in F1.
Yeah, most likely. And it's like, it was this really weird thing where, because of all of his previous results and because of like how you have seen him drive, Checo has gotten more forgiveness than anybody else on the grid, other than like a Lance Stroll, because he's effectively like a three-legged dog, like in that car, and people are like, "Go, bud, go!" But
like I mean, I had pity hope for him before the weekend. That I was just like,
yeah, that's
I was
good.
like, it sounds like it's not gonna be you next year. So I hope you have you finish strong. I don't like feeling that way. And with Lance Stroll, like, it's a completely different scenario because we're just at the whims of his father, and so we're just like, eh.
But that's what I'm saying. That's like not who you should be comparing it to, because you're right. Like, that is a totally different scenario, but like it's kind of looking that way. And here's like my big critique here on F1 and the way it treats its heroes. There are a lot of copium tanks left on the ground at a lot of these racetracks from these commentators talking about Sergio. I mean, you know me, I'm not like Red Bull's biggest fan, so like I've been checked out on this guy forever, but every single weekend it's like,
just can be. Like, he's not affecting anything high up on the grid. Like, you can just ignore it.
Then how come the conversation every weekend is like, this is where Sergio comes back in it? I mean, he's reigniting. I mean, that was literally every weekend. And he's just like, I'm sorry, I'm P20 again, dog.
Yeah, I mean, no, I'm with you. It's more of I can understand why you've checked out on him, because he's not affecting anything with the teams that you're rooting for and everything.
Exactly.
But it is a conversation every week, because it's like, I think everyone is like, there has to be a reason that he hasn't been like they have to believe that he can come back and be this race winner again. And just the longer and longer it goes, you're like, he's just not getting better. He's still sick. It's turned from bronchitis into pneumonia.
He's like the Make-A-Wish kid now.
It's just bad. Like, it's getting like every week that it drags on, it's just like, oh, all right, I guess we're just gonna just keep doing this. Like, I think it also, like, it doesn't help that Red Bull gave it, like I said back when they did it, when he hadn't been performing at the beginning of the season, I was like, why did you sign him for a new contract, let alone a multi-year contract, without seeing how the season plays out? Now they look stupid. They look like a mess trying to figure out who they're going to put it. Just wait. If someone else signed Checo, like, if you're in this like weird limbo with him and someone else was like, wait, Checo hasn't been re-signed yet, let's snag him. Like, you're just in the position you're in like, you're just in the position you're in now. Like,
Yeah.
you're not really, like, in a worse spot than you are currently. Like,
With him.
yeah, it's just, they made that decision. That was poor decision making, and I am glad that, or no, I guess I'm not glad that I was proven right, but like, this is why when someone's not performing, you don't just give them a new contract. It made no sense then, and it makes even less sense now. So,
Yeah. Dude, the most tanks of copium are on the floor of the Red Bull garage. Like, that's for sure.
and I don't understand how, like, have they not been watching the same races that we're watching? Like,
Well, they are. They just have the gas mask of copium that they're breathing in, and it makes it look all rosy and fine.
I mean, even in these races that he is like P8, P9, P10, whatever, finishing, like, we're not even getting highlights of him passing anyone either. They're just like, oh yeah, Checo started P9, finished P9, and like, on to next week with those 2 more points. It's like, great, thanks, bud. Like, how are we, like, I don't get how they don't see it. You're right. I think it's just this, like, maybe they are just seeing dollar signs in their eyes. The man just got sponsored by Kit Kat. He has a lot of sponsorships and everything coming his way. Hey, if they're like doing the math of like, are the dollars worth it? I can assure you that the dollars from Kit Kat are not making up for the Constructors' Championship money. I can do the math for you guys. It doesn't even out. It really doesn't. Like, Checo on his like $5 million a year contract too, when you could have a Yuki Tsunoda who was making like $300K for his first 2 seasons in Formula 1 or something like that. Like, Yuki's been making peanuts, and you're paying Checo $5 million to or however much. Like, the savings is there. I've got a Black Friday deal for you guys.
There you go. That's the headline right there.
But yeah, it's just, I do feel for Checo, because he is just, yeah, like, he's constantly in the conversation, but it's just, he has not been able to figure his performance out, which is definitely just disappointing and kind of difficult to watch week in, week out. Yeah, just another DNF this week, and a brutal weekend. So, but hey, here's to hoping for Abu Dhabi.
Dude, in my head canon, that will forever be a rage quit from him.
And basically, it's what it feels like.
Well, exactly. And another rage quit that did not go through, bro, I was dying at the Lewis messages when they were like having him, what was it, like a penalty or like something that he had to serve, and then he's just like, park the car, mate, you gotta retire me, and Bono goes, negative. Yeah. They gotta send him back out. It's like, that was the funniest radio message I've ever heard.
Yeah, because they're like, well, and even that, so they're like, Lewis is like, retire the car. They're like, no, you have this 5-second penalty. If you don't serve it now, then you'll have a penalty for the next race. Like, we need you to pit, serve your 5-second penalty where we don't touch the car, send you back out to do your lap, because if we just retire the car right there, like, it doesn't count. So it's like, all right, whatever. Comes in, does it. And they're like, okay, you can box now. And he's just like, no. He just keeps driving. He's like, you guys made me go back out here on circuit, So I'm finishing, and I'll finish in P12, but I'm driving this thing the rest of the race.
Dude, so funny. Like, such a hilarious, like, chain of events. Bro, and then another great, like, radio moment is the, what was this? Magnussen finally getting the overtake done on Albon, where like the first time Albon like gets like oversteer and like bumps into him, he's like, "Bro, is he ramming me?" And then the second time Albon runs him off the road. He's like, "All right, into the gravel trap I go." And then I think it was on like attempt 4 or 5. He finally gets past Albon. He's so quick on the message. He's like, "Fuck off," as he's like driving down the road. Bro, this race had me dying, like literally laughing out loud. Some of these moments, like towards the end of the race, were so funny.
Well, and it wasn't even like, it wasn't shaping up to be this crazy of a race or anything. It was really like that mirror, and it was Albon's mirror. Right. From one of the contacts earlier in the race that flew off, and it's like, that's just the way that this week was going and everything. It just turned to chaos real quick. But yeah, Albon with just a rough day of it with everything. Pretty unfortunate for him.
Yeah, saying on the radio, like, "Bro, Stroll hit me. I knew he was going to do it." That is so funny and disappointing all at the same time. Like, it confirms everything you know as a viewer about Lance Stroll, because, like, the other driver feels it too, right? Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, damn, and this guy's still like on the grid. That sucks.
Yeah, and that is such a brutal just like, it's like one of those things that it probably almost felt like slow motion, where he's just like, oh no. So you're probably wondering how I got here. Yeah,
freeze frame.
And it's just Lance Stroll locking up his brakes. And they're like, yep, that's basically it. But, damn, dude. Yeah, just from Lance, rough race. Just, I mean, again, I kind of don't really think about him that much because, one, Aston Martin's fallen off a cliff this year. Except for props to Fernando putting it up in the points this week. But, like, that car has been underdeveloped all season long. And so we haven't really heard about them in the points too much. But Lance is just causing mayhem at the back of the grid. So, hey, it's keeping those Williams engineers very well employed. The amount of rebuilding of cars, like they're gonna have PTSD from this season. Colapinto when he replaced Logan Sargent, I was like, you're replacing him with a rookie? I don't know. Boom, right again. I'm just gonna start keeping a tally of my wins because, like, yes, Colapinto has had some good races and everything. He came in strong and all, but he has caused so much damage for that team over the past few weeks that it has. He's probably close to Sargent's amount of damage on the car for the year. Like, he's up there. I really feel for their budget. Their accounting team is going through it, trying to just make money out of thin air.
Yeah, I'm curious if Kit Kat has any more like sponsorship openings, because some of these teams may need it.
That they might, but yeah, just a really tough weekend from Colapinto as well. The Williams squad really struggled. But the other big story that we wanted to talk about a little bit that we alluded to earlier was with Alpine and Esteban Ocon. So as you mentioned, they announced after this race weekend, Ocon gets taken out at the first turn. Couldn't really do anything. Just gets collected in the early incident. I think it was Hulkenberg that that took them out because he was on the hard I think it was Hulkenberg was on the hard tires, locked up into turn 1 and takes out Colapinto and Ocon. But so Ocon out by turn 1 of this race, and then is announced that he's not going to be finishing the season for the Alpine team. They're putting Jack Doohan in for the last race of the season. It's just it's such a bummer for him. Like you had said, Ocon's worked all season long. Yeah, he's had some worse luck than Gasly and everything, but he's driven with these guys all year. Has had not a bad season. Some stats. So he has had 89 Grand Prix with the Alpine team, 3 podiums, 247 points, 1 win, and they just dropped him like a sack of potatoes. Like, all right, see ya. Like, that is so disappointing from the organization side of it, to see that they are that willing. Like, their first driver as Alpine that they signed was Esteban Ocon. Like, French team, French driver. He's got your only win as Alpine. Like, how can you do the man like that? That's so disappointing.
I would tend to agree. I do not like that from the organization standpoint. It should be, well, should, could, and would maybe aren't like the best things to say, but I do not see, here's what I mean. I do not see the difference between putting Jack in now and taking like him out, right? Like, your results are not going to be any different. You're effectively going to be in probably the same position. So all you do is just leave this guy hung out to dry, and there's actually no like added value to like Jack coming in. If like they're close with somebody and like we're fighting and like Jack's had some really, like, none of that is existing right now. They're like a purely just stagnant team looking to make like not even a lateral move, bro. If Ocon was not a race winner, I would say fine, lateral move. But this guy has put so much work in, and you're just like, yeah, we're gonna move a little bit backwards. Later, guy. I don't like that at all. Well, you can color me not an Alpine fan.
And along with that, like, you're still in the constructors fight. You're only 5 points above Haas, the team that Esteban is going to next year. Like, you're letting him go early, go to the team that is your closest rival on the grid at the moment, and potentially putting yourself in the spot to have a rookie driver not be successful. And just like, you could potentially lose this place in the Constructors' Championship with this decision too. Like,
yeah, it seems really risky to me.
It wasn't Esteban's fault that he got knocked out of this last race, but for that to be your last race with the team, man, I like hope that Esteban comes in next year with a fire lit under him. Some just like some payback coming in the form of points for Haas versus Alpine. I think that's all you can hope for, because it's just the decision, it doesn't make sense in terms of the team and being successful, and it doesn't make sense in terms of just like doing right by your people. The only reason that I've heard that makes any semblance of sense when it comes to this decision is that Jack Doohan, it's his seat to lose to an extent, because Alpine has now looked at Franco Colapinto as a potential option. So, like, the only thing, and it's not even fair to Jack either, but to basically be like, hey, good luck if you do poorly.
Got robots talking to us.
Google Home talking to me over here.
Crazy.
But if they look at it and go, "Hey Jack, like do good or you're gone. You get this one shot opportunity. Be like Eminem." Like that's not fair to him either. Just coming in with no real warm up, no test opportunity, and just saying, "Hey bud, like we've seen Franco out here driving, and if you don't do decent, like we'll eat your contract. It's not that much of a hit to our budget," kind of thing. Like that. And if that is the decision making and why they did this, then that's horrible too. Like Jack Doohan is driving in your young drivers test at the end of the season. You don't need to do this. Like, unless there's some weird, convoluted reason, and if that is the case, don't do that. Like, it's not cool.
Right. Yeah, it just seems like no matter how you slice it, it doesn't seem like a strategy forward decision made by Alpine. I just don't see what they see they have to gain by like making this move with little to no like yeah, I'm not even like room to do much with the change anyway. It just seems very like forced, backwards moving. Yeah, whatever you want to say. I'm just I'm kind of in agreement with you. It's shitty all around.
Yeah, I'm just not impressed by the decision there. But I think the only final, and it's not even that consequential when it comes to racing, but the one other thing that I wanted to talk about, and this kind of brings us back in the episode a little bit, but with George Russell and the stewarding decision with Max's penalty, coming back to like what you were talking about before with drivers calling out each other's issues and everything, like this stewarding decision, George is not on Max's Christmas card list anymore, but I don't know how much you saw of this, but essentially when they went to the stewards and everything, Max basically said behind closed doors George is a different person, and he's like, I've never seen someone working so hard to screw another driver over in terms of the one place grid penalty, that Max had told George after they left the stewards room, like, I will be ahead of you at turn 1 tomorrow, like, good luck. And was just very, like, had a lot to say about him afterwards, that he's just kind of two-faced, like, in front of the cameras. He puts on this happy-go-lucky, like, oh, I'm just a good old chap here, and blimey, and all this little, like, it's a character, and not really how he is. And so I was kind of surprised to see that, because just like I felt like Mercedes was just getting blasted this weekend with Lewis in his like issues and team work problems with his engineers and everything across the weekend. But then that too, I was like, man, Mercedes is really not looking phenomenal. But I didn't know how much you had seen of that, kind of what your thoughts were on it. I just found it pretty interesting because Max was like, I've been to the stewards against a lot of people. He's like, I get called down to the principal's office quite a bit, and I've never seen him this fired up about coming out of a stewarding decision with another driver. He's been there plenty of times with Lando this season and come out and been like, I just hope that I just know that me and Lando are friends outside of F1, so that's all I care about. And then comes out of this with George, and he's like, yo, that guy sucks.
I mean, it doesn't. It actually doesn't really surprise me. I don't know if I'm going to like totally change my tune on an individual, like just based on
That's fair.
a guy's report of a meeting behind closed doors. It does not surprise me that a behind closed doors assessment kind of aligns with how some of his radio messages feel. He is often very different, and you understand like tension and pressure and things like this, but there are other drivers on the grid who can keep it level-headed while like under pressure. It often feels like George is defaulting to this like raised voice, accusatory,
That's fair.
and I'm not saying one way or the other, but that I have myself gotten the sense that the George that is doing like the post race and like pre race interviews is a very measured individual, and sometimes like during the race you can tell he kind of like lets it loose a little bit. And as for like Max and George, yeah, Max. I mean, he knows he's better. If he has that much confidence, like I'm going to be ahead of you going into turn one. Like if that is really like the view and what was said, I mean, Max already has like the full measure of the scenario anyway. Like
Yeah.
George can do all he wants, saying he's driving slowly, he kicked my dog, like he cheated on my homework, like whatever you want to say. It's like that's fine, bro, but like race me.
Yeah.
You know, and like it feels like that's ultimately Max's like play. So it sounds like Max understands the measure of the scenario, but it will make me keep my eyes open for other scenarios where any driver could be selling both sides of the boat kind of deal.
Yeah, and it's like one of the things that kind of struck me too was with George being the head of the president of the Drivers Association and everything too. Like I think this is part of where Max, it sounded like he was coming from, but like this guy's supposed to be for like the fighting for the drivers when it comes to these things. And obviously like he's like, I understand it was him versus me in terms of this like incident, or we were the two involved in this incident. But Max said he basically was like, hey, like I understand I was outside of the delta that we're supposed to be, but I was like in traffic trying not to mess up other people's laps, like letting people, like I was on a cool down lap, these people are on warm up laps, like I'm not gonna go past them and get in their way and yada yada yada. Like a lot of very reasonable reasons that this happened and could have just been let go, but along with the one place penalty, he got a penalty point on his license too for that. So like it's just the fact that he had all these like very clear reasons, and George must have been just like hammering against him to get this penalty and snatch the pole position away. Like, yeah, it just definitely something that I'm gonna just have my eyes open for a little bit. It's like, yeah, we don't know exactly what happened, like you said, so it's a very tempered view of it from you to be like, hey, like it's not going to change my mind, but I've already kind of got an inkling of this, so like we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I just thought that was a very interesting part of the weekend before any of the racing on Sunday happened. So
Yeah, of course. I mean, and here's another, just like a smaller angle that I'll offer you on it too, is zoom out just a little bit, and you can even like understand George's position. Like, bro, it has to be a very solid example of how much pressure these drivers must feel like they are under. I mean, a multi-year contract, bro, unheard of. it's only these like 1 to 2 years. Like
Mhm.
you're effectively like you're it must feel like you're an independent contractor that like needs that next bid, right?
Yeah.
So you can understand why somebody who should be looking out for like driver intent as a whole, it's easy to understand their view turning a little bit inward and saying like, yeah, but I need to get like my piece of the pie too. So just a little bit of a zoom out to say like, even if George is the main villain, here is just like one little caveat to say like it could easily be any of these drivers on the grid that feel pressure, that feel like they may not have a seat, that feel like it may not be them. And if this is what it takes to eke out any advantage because other drivers on the grid are doing it, it's going to feel like that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
And
And
that's more of like a word of caution of like this is where I feel like F1 is going, where maybe that's not George Russell, maybe that is F1 the sport in 2024. You feel me?
yeah, I can see where you're coming from there. It just like in my mind, I guess, to some extent. I think these drivers, like the drivers, are pretty like proud people in general. Like they have a lot of pride in what they do in and I think for the most part in the way that they do it. And so like it's one of those things where I feel like bad or like not as happy about when I go to my men's basketball league and we win by forfeit because the other team didn't have 5 guys show up for the day. Like that doesn't feel like a fun way to win. So like getting this pole position, and in particular like my men's basketball league means absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of things other than
Sure.
getting me a workout. Like this race, George had nothing to really like gain from this. He's 24 points ahead of Lewis in the driver's standings. Mercedes is like hundreds of points away on either end from the next team in the constructors standings and all. So like maybe this is the way that drivers and everything are going, but like that I wouldn't feel great about being like, ooh, I'm starting on pole now when it like really isn't affecting you whatsoever in any sense of things through like for the way the season's finishing at this point. Like
Sure.
that's it, it's just kind of weird to me. And but I agree, like we are seeing this very like everyone's focused on making sure that they're getting every little like incremental gain that they can, but that one just felt a little like yucky.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like that's got
Yeah.
slime on it, and like whether he has problems sleeping at night for that or not, like that's on him. I know that's not how I would want a pole position. I would almost just like give it to the guy and then just try and beat him, you know.
Yeah.
But that doesn't. That mentality doesn't win you $20 million, right? That's why he's making the cheddar.
Fair.
I just want to offer. I just wanted to offer just a couple of different viewpoints on it.
Oh yeah,
'Cause
absolutely.
it'd be so easy to just like vilify. But yeah, I can imagine these guys experience things that we can't even dream of.
Yeah.
So yeah, just a little bit of grace to Britain's worst driver.
There we go. Love it. Had to slide that in there, but yeah, that I don't think I have too many more things on the race weekend. So to kind of wrap us out, so we did have Max getting his 9th win of the season here at the end of the Bahrain Qatar Grand Prix. I'm trying to go all the way back to the beginning of the season. The Qatar Grand Prix. Lando is second in the championship, but Charles finished second in the race. Oscar finished third on the podium there. But yeah, in the Drivers' Championship, we've got 8 points now between Lando and Charles, between P2 and P3 in the drivers, and that 21-point gap between McLaren to Ferrari for P1 of the Constructors' Championship.
So a little bit to play for here, a little bit of pride on the line for, Charles and Lando. It becomes a race for second between those two, but yeah, still all to play for in the Constructors. And I feel like the tension next weekend is going to be just cranked up to another notch, because both McLaren and Ferrari, and even a Red Bull, because God forbid Sergio could still win a race. I mean, there are points to play for. So yeah, I think it'll be really exciting. Up until, like Fred Vasseur said, up until the final lap. So I'm very much looking forward to it.
Yeah, it'll be a good, hopefully good end to the season. I'm looking forward to the last race. It's going to be sad when F1 is over for the year, but we've had a really phenomenal season all year long. 7 different multiple race winners. A really tight drivers and constructors fight for a long stretch of the season. So it's been a fun year of Formula 1, and we've got one to go, so it's not over yet.
Yeah, I think a lot of your bingo slots could get filled in. Whether you won bingo or not, who knows? But you probably have a lot of stamps down, and that's exciting enough.
Absolutely. But to wrap out this week, we'll swing down, hit our cooldown lap. We won't go too slow, I promise, but we've got the Rose, Thorn, and Seed coming for you this week.
Yeah, we don't want to get yelled at by George Russell. My rose here for the week, I was told by a friendly employee that I have many, many frequent flyer miles that I might want to cash in before they expire. And I said, "Oh, how many points do I have?" And she said, "You've got a lot." So I got one free trip, and then I think I have at least another full free trip, in the bag. So yeah, 2024. I've been stocking up those miles, and I'll be definitely cashing in. So that's a pretty fun rose here for me.
Very cool.
My thorn is that the cold weather changes things, and I have to now start a little bit earlier. You got to warm things up a little bit more. So yeah, not a fan of the cold weather rolling in, seeing the, frost on the windows. We had to drop all the, glass things behind the windows and all of this stuff. So really feeling the frigid air, and I'm not a fan. And then my seed here coming up, the Perfect World Shanghai Major has been in full effect. We've had the RMRs and now the opening stage complete, and now I'm just looking forward to the round of 16. We'll start to see now the teams that have been pre-seeded into that, they didn't have to play the first round. So that's where I'll start to see some of my favorite teams and players. But yeah, I think the opening stage was really exciting. And
what is it best of 3 in the opening stages and then going to best of 5 in the round of 16, or how does that break down?
It'll likely be, I'm pretty sure it's a Swiss, so it'll probably start with best of 1s, and then your qualification series, so your 2-0 series or your 0-2 series, those will all be best of 3s. When you're fighting for either elimination or promotion, those get kicked up to a best of 3, and then I'm pretty sure the grand final will be a best of 5, which is very exciting.
Nice.
So yeah, just looking forward to just Tier 1 Counter-Strike, the biggest event of the year. It's been all culminating to this, and it has been very fun so far. So very much looking forward to it coming up this weekend. But yeah, that's my Rose, Thorn, and Seed.
Nice. That is exciting, and definitely we'll get to check out some of that this weekend. But for my Rose, Thorn, and Seed this week, my Rose, I've just got Thanksgiving. It's one of my favorite holidays because you just get to eat lots of good food and see family and everything. And so I enjoy that for the most part. There's the little things of the travel back and forth and everything that is a bit inconvenient. But otherwise, Thanksgiving, solid holiday. I enjoyed it with my family. I hope everyone out there listening enjoyed it with whoever they did over the holiday, family, friends, strangers.
Pets.
You never know, pets. But yeah,
Co-workers, God forbid.
love some good Thanksgiving. My thorn this week is that the cold weather changes things.
Damn, you too, dog. You copied my homework again.
Basically, and for me, that means that my eczema is back in full force. Once the winter comes around, it just gets pretty rough. The cold, dry air, my fingers crack and bleed, and it's just not good fun times when the winter weather comes out. So yeah, that has started and is pretty frustrating. It is what it is, but it at this point every year it kind of creeps back in full force. But yeah, and my seed for this week is just had a lot of thinking time when it comes to work and things like that over the last little bit. Some conversations with some different people in the management team and everything, and I think before too long I'll be starting to figure out kind of where the next opportunity might be and what that is gonna look like. I like the team and the people I work with, but there's just some organizational things that I've kind of slowly become aware of that I'm not super thrilled with, and I'm just kind of getting burnout of working with difficult people on a frequent enough basis that I'm like, I think I could take a step back from working so closely with the people of the world.
Gotcha.
So maybe easing back from front-facing customer service positions, but we'll see. I've got a lot of figuring out of things to do, but that's why it's my seed. I'm kind of putting that out there to kind of encourage myself to take the time and spend the time to kind of put the pieces of this puzzle together, figure out what I want to be when I grow up. So yeah, we'll figure it out one day at a time. But that's my rose, thorn, and seed for this week.
Yeah, it's a constant question we're all trying to answer. We want to be when we grow up. I feel like we're being invaded by some aliens.
Yeah.
Got some metallic sounds going on here, so we're just going to do a quick sign off. I want to say thank you very much for listening. This is the Top Boys podcast. We do a podcast after every Formula 1 race. Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate you.
Yep, we appreciate it very much. Sorry for the robot sounding voice here at the end, but don't forget to like and subscribe. We appreciate you all listening, and we'll catch you for the breakdown of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix next week after the last race of the season. We'll see you guys.
Peace out, everyone.